there such thing as a typical night with
Yeah,
Christopher?
I think so. At least for me, I probably everybody had their own experiences. Usually, it always involved copious alcohol if you want. I mean, there's no problem going there and not drinking.
Yeah.
But it was something we used to do together a lot, and he enjoyed it. And when he was dying, he used to have to take a lot of painkillers. And he hated them because he thought, I mean, they used to drive him crazy because he thought they were mind numbing and conversation killing and inward dragging substances, whereas cigarettes and alcohol, which he loved, were gregarious and tongue loosening and social and interactive. And, so the thing is, come in, the door's unlocked. That's the first thing, right? So if your friends, the doorman knows you, right? And you don't even necessarily have to be called up. He lives in one of these buildings where you need permission. Lived on the top floor of a really nice apartment building, as I say, at the top of the hill behind DuPont Circle. So for me, it was always a matter of just going in, just opening the door and walking in. Very spacious apartment and without all that much furniture. And it's a matter of figuring out where Hitch is in this. So you can kind of follow the voices, or you could just go and sit down and wait for people to come to you. Or you could go to the little room off the side of the kitchen where all the booze is and pour yourself one. He had a pretty strict rule, but he would break it sometimes. But his basic rule is, I'll get you your first drink. After that, you know where it is. Don't bother me. Just go for it.
Not a bad rule.
And that's a fine rule. And so, there would be a period of time of getting to know whoever else was there, because frequently there were people one didn't know, and conversation and talking and whatnot. And then often there would be dinner, more or less, could be very informal, could be more catered. Sometimes it's catered, but a lot of times it was just, whatever was doing, or takeout. And that could be a very long affair. He had in his dining room this very long table, and people would kind of sit around it, and wine and plenty of smoking and lots of talking. And those, once you're at the table, very frequently, it would be around, say, 9 o'clock or something, a lot of times you would more or less be there until 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. It's with some breaks, but then it becomes like this kind of court where Hitch would hold court for however long it was. And as I say, very relaxed, very informal, intellectual conversations, politically charged, not for the faint of heart, full of witticisms, lots of humor, lots of joking. But there were not two Hitchens. There were, Hitchens moods. I mean, sometimes he was happy, sometimes he was angry, sad, he'd be pro you, against you, whatever. But there was only one persona that I ever saw, and I saw him in all kinds of situations. So what you see on TV, in the lectures, and is just the way he was the whole time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask you too. Is that was there another?
No,
I guess he had his friendships and he had his intimacies, but
right.
What you see is pretty much what you got with him.
Yeah, it's what you see was what you got, and he was extremely tolerant of his guests, generally speaking, and his friends, and he was a very, very devoted friend, at least to me. I mean, I sort of knew that he was one of those people where I could go to him and ask him to lend me a bunch of money, and he would give it to me and then ask me what it was for. Or I could show up and I mean a bunch. Never did, but he would have done it. Or I could have shown up with a suitcase at his door at 3 a.m. and say, I need to stay with you for a while. And the question would be, which room do you want? That kind of thing. I mean, really, no kidding about that stuff, right?
Yeah, he was serious about it. Yeah.
Very serious about it. Once you're in, you're in. And, so I think that's really important to kind of emphasize. It was one of the things that I really loved about him, was that he knew how to be a really good friend. This was my experience, and I think a lot of people's experience with him, because he took friendship very seriously, and he was a very good friend. In addition to which, he had a certain kind of aplomb. He sometimes could get upset, but usually he didn't. He would, somebody would do something and he'll look up and say, well, they will do that, won't they? Or one time someone got very intoxicated and staggered off, and was then spotted sort of passed out on the floor. And then somebody went into one of the bathrooms and it was so sprayed with vomit, basically. And this is really bad. And his wife went and looked and she screamed, because it was just, it was her. It was like, I don't know if you've ever seen the film Manhunter.
No.
Okay, well, there's a scene where there was this murder and they turn on the lights and there's like blood everywhere. This is like that.
You didn't hold back, yeah.
Yeah. The books in there had to all be thrown out. Let's put it. That's how bad it was. So finally, after all this commotion, Hitch gets up. It is about 3 a.m. He walks over there. He looks at you. I've seen worse. That's it.